Sorry guys, my laptop got frozen for a couple of minutes. I'm so sorry. Matar, sorry, Minna, hello.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, my computer got frozen. Okay.
Mr. Lorry arrives at Dover. He is preparing to tell Lucy Manette that her father is still alive and he has been taken to an old servant home in France. So they have to go there to and Tilson Bank sent Mr. Lorry to identify him. So Lucy is preparing to take care of her father, and on their way, she met someone that hit her, and Miss Ross defended her.
Okay, Minna, thank you. But she didn't meet someone that hit her. She was shocked by the news, Mr. Or when after Mr. Lorry, let's say, divulged or disclosed the nature of their task or their mission. She was shocked when she knew that her father, whom she thought was dead, is still alive, and he is somewhere or imprisoned in was imprisoned in Paris and is released now. And their mission was to go and take him to live in safety in London. Okay. When Miss Cross, her servant, came quickly and pushed Mr. Lorry to the wall, thinking that he caused this to the girl. Okay, thank you very much, Minna. Mirna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you summarize it in your own words? Sorry, guys, we are repeating this for those who didn't attend. Guys who didn't attend, be ready. You will say the same stuff after those people finish. Go ahead, Mirna.
I'll summarize chapter 4 and 5 together, okay?
Okay, no problem. Generous lady. Generous as usual, Mirna, wallah. Go ahead.
Mr. Jarvis Lorry arrives at the hotel, the Royal George, I think.
Yes, good.
And then he tells he like informs the hotel of the arrival of a lady who'll meet him,
Okay.
and then upon her arrival, um, before her arrival, he starts thinking how he'll like tell her this information.
Mm.
And then when she arrives, he describes a situation for her, but he does not mention that this is her father's situation. However, she assumes that it's her father, and she goes into a state of shock. Um, so she faints,
Mm.
and her servant comes running and pushes Mr. Lorry. Um, and that's it.
Okay, this is chapter 4, right?
Yes, with chapter 5, I don't remember
Okay.
what
We
happened.
are in Paris now, Saint Antoine district. Remember the wine, the Jack.
Yes, yes,
Huh?
yes. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Um, at the shop of Monsieur and Madame Defarge,
Mm.
um, like a cask of wine breaks,
Mm.
and wine spills out of it. So people run trying to get some of the wine, and then someone dips his finger in the wine and writes blood on the wall, foreshadowing what will eventually happen in the French Revolution.
Mm.
Um, and then there is like a chamber in the fifth floor where there are three and this is called Jackery.
Yeah, this.
Yes, this phenomena is called jackery, where revolutionaries would be called Jack, so they are anonymous and they don't know them,
Okay.
like their real names.
Mm.
And then Jarvis Lorry and Miss Manette step into the shop. So Monsieur Defarge lead them to a room where there is a white-haired man, and he's making shoes, I think. And this is supposedly Dr. Manat.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Ahmed Matar, can you summarize what you understood from Mirna and Minna? These are chapters 4 and 5. I want to make sure you understand what happened in chapters 4 and 5. Ahmed,
Yes, Mister.
go ahead.
1 second.
Take your time. Waiting, Ahmed. Right. Until Ahmed
In
gets
chapter 4,
okay.
Mr. Lorry arrives at the Royal Green Hotel in Dover.
Mm.
Uh,
Do you remember who Mr. Lorry is?
لا.
A banker. He is a banker. He worked for Tellson's Bank in London. Tellson's Bank, Ahmed, has offices in London and offices in Paris, or an office in London and another office in London. Such banks which manage the money of those families where the husband is from one of the two countries and the wife is from the other. Mr. Manette or Dr. Manette is French, and his wife, his late wife, Madame Manette, was English. Okay, and you know, when one of them dies, there is a financial, let's say, there is some financial or there are some financial issues that need to be managed. Okay, this is why they needed banks, or they put their money, or such people deposit their money in banks which have, let's say, have offices in both countries. Okay, the Manette's money was put in Tellson's bank. Okay, and Mr. Lorry was the trustee. They needed a trustee, a person who can manage this for them. The man was called to travel to London with Mr. Manette's or Monsieur Manette's or Dr. Manette's daughter Lucy, and bring the man back from Paris to live in safety in France. Okay, after being imprisoned for 18 years without a trial. The man was, you know, it's one of the human rights to be imprisoned after a trial, or to have your own trial. If you are accused of something, you must be trialed. This is your tried. Sorry, this is your right. So the man was pushed into prison, like buried in a dark cell for 18 years without being tried. Okay. Once he meets the daughter of Dr. Manette, she doesn't recognize Mr. Lorry at the beginning, but she remembers him, and she remembers the time when she was 2, when he went to Paris. His last mission in Paris was to get the girl from Paris to live in safety in London. And he's doing the same thing now with her father, but he'll accompany the girl. Why? To nurse her father to health again, because the man, as we said yesterday, lost his name, or forgot his name, sorry. Whenever you ask him about his name, Ahmed, he says 105 North Tower. This is the number of the room or the cell in which he was imprisoned. He didn't say his name. You know, people in prison, for example, when I ask you, about your name, you are a prisoner, you say, I am number 13. Just
Yes.
they remember their numbers only. But the man answered, given his cell number, or Mr. Lorry needs to break the news for the girl. The girl was told by her late mother that her father passed away. When the man, Mr. Lorry, didn't want to shock her, he told her about an anonymous doctor who had this suffering. The girl was smart and understood that maybe he was talking about her dad. And when she knew, she, as Minna said, something like Minna fainted. She has a servant, Ahmed, called Miss Pross. Okay, Miss Pross was a muscular woman, a strong woman. At the end of the novel, she will kill someone. Miss Pross will kill someone at the end of the novel. Okay, to protect Lucy. The woman was very protective of Lucy, and she comes quickly and pushes Mr. Lorry, thinking that he caused this shock to the girl, and asks for help from the people around her in the hotel. This is the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5, Mr. Lorry and Lucy arrive in Paris in a district called Saint Antoine. We are in the street in front of a wine shop, uh, and a cask of wine, red wine, is broken, and the wine is spilled on the ground. The poor people of this district, of this area, of this street, run to the wine and scoop it up with their hands. Okay, they scoop the wine up with their hands and hand to mouth. As you know, the wine is red. Their hands are tainted red. Their mouths are tainted red. Maybe their bodies, their clothes. Okay, and this, as we said yesterday, symbolizes the blood which will be shed in this area in Paris 14 years ahead, in the French Revolution, because the events or this time was 1775. The French Revolution took place, as we know, in 1789, 14 years after this time. Okay, one of the poor people called Gaspard, we will talk about him later, dipped his finger, as Myrna said, Myrna, in the wine and wrote blood, B, capital B-L-O-O-D, on the wall, which means there will be blood here. Later, Monsieur Defarge, the shop or the wine shop owner, blamed this man for this, which showed that Monsieur Defarge was a man of authority, was a leader. He has a sense of leadership, okay? But his wife, Madame Defarge, was stricter, harsher, and she kept knitting. She was sitting in the shop all the time, doing nothing but knitting the names of the aristocrats who oppressed them all the time. She netted a big list of names. Those names will be sentenced to the guillotine. They will be killed after the revolution. Okay. Then there were three people in the shop called Jacks. Jack 1, Jack 2, Jack. Maybe Monsieur Defarge himself is Jack 1. But the other three people are Jack 2, Jack 3, Jack 4, and so on. And we said they use these names just to be unified. Maybe they didn't want to be identified by the government or the aristocrats. Okay, and then the three men asked to see Dr. Manette in his room. Dr. Manette is released from prison now, and he goes to live with Monsieur Defarge. Why with Monsieur Defarge? Because Monsieur Defarge was Dr. Manette's servant in the past. He takes the three Jacks and goes up to fifth floor, as Myrna said, and they look through a hole and see a man, a white-haired man, sitting on a bench making shoes. The man is a shoemaker now, although he was a physician or a doctor. He forgot his name, he forgot his job, and he forgot everything. He forgot when Lucy stepped in the room, he thought that she was her mother. Okay, and then Mr. Lorry and Lucy arrive in the shop, and Jack takes them up to the same room, and this is the end of chapter 5. This is what happened in chapter 5. The last chapter of book 1, as we said, book 1, book 2, book 3, the story has or is divided into 3 books. In book 1, there are 5 or 6 chapters, 6 chapters. Book 2, which we are going to study starting next Sunday, inshallah, the second and the third term, 24 chapters. And in book 3, there are, I think, 15 chapters. So let's do chapter 6 and see what the title of chapter 6 is. Give me a second to open it. Okay, we said chapter 6 is page 35. Okay, the title of chapter 6, I'll just share the screen first, is the shoemaker. And here I'd like to ask, let's say, I want to ask Dahroob. Can you hear me, Ahmed?
Yes, Mr.
Who is the shoemaker, Ahmed? Just to make sure you are following up. Who is the shoemaker? طب الكيكي, take your time, Ahmed. الكيكي, Muhammad, are you following up? It's an easy question, Peter. Thank you. Put your hand down. I want to make sure that some guys are following up. You are following up, Peter, I'm sure.
Mr.
Yes.
Alexander Mati.
Alexander Manet. Alexander Manet. Thank you, Ahmed. Monsieur Manet. Kiki, can you hear me? Kiki?
Yeah.
Who is Alexander Manet, Muhammad? Who is Alexander Manet?
Alexander Manet.
Ahmed said the shoemaker. Can you see the title of chapter 6 in front of you?
Yeah, I can see it.
The shoemaker. So Ahmed said that the shoemaker is Dr. Alexander Manet. Who is Dr. Alexander Manet?
Is the shoemaker.
The what? You are great, Muhammad. Yeah, the shoemaker is Alexander Manet. Who is Alexander Manet?
He's the doctor. He's the doctor. He's the doctor, and he's the father of Lucy's father.
Yeah, he's Lucy's father. What's wrong with him now, Muhammad?
He was in prison for 18 years.
Good. That's enough. Thank you. Okay. Rashwan, what would you want to add something? Would you like to add something?
لا كنت أقول هو قال.
Speak in English, حق عبده. Speak in English, please. Okay. So we have the shoemaker, and let's read a couple of lines, then we'll have the summary. Good day, said Monsieur Defarge, looking down at the white head that bent low over the shoemaking. Again, the man was sitting on his bench, bent down, okay, or bent low, focusing on the shoe he is making. He was making a shoe. It was raised for a moment. What was raised? This head. And a very faint voice responded to the salutation as if it were at a distance. Good day. You are still hard at work, I see. After a long silence, the head was lifted for another moment and the voice replied, yes, I'm working. This time, a pair of haggard eyes had looked at the questioner. The questioner here is Monsieur Defarge, as we said. Before the face had dropped again, he just looked up at Monsieur Defarge. He didn't notice the existence of his daughter, okay? And he looked again at the shoe and started working again. Before the face had dropped again, the faintness of the voice, his voice was faint, was pitiable and dreadful. It was not the faintness of physical weakness, though confinement. He was confined individually, confined in a prison, in a cell for 18 years individually, and hard fare, no doubt, had their part in it. They participated to this condition now. It's deplorable. It's very bad. Okay, it's deplorable peculiarity was that it was the faintness of solitude and disuse. The man lived in solitude for 18 years. It was like the last feeble echo of a sound made long and long ago. So entirely had it lost the life and resonance of the human voice that it affected the senses like a once beautiful color faded away into a poor, weak stain. So sunken and suppressed it was that it was like a voice underground. Yeah, here Charles Dickens describes the condition of the man after being released from prison. I want, said the Defarge.
Mister,
Yes.
sorry for interruption. The meeting is logged. يعني هانيا can't join.
Hania can't join. So I need to go to security, but Hania is late and I'm not sure why it is locked in. Okay, I unlocked it.
I don't know.
I unlocked it, but I'm not sure why it's locked automatically. Okay, thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Hania, okay, she will try to join us. A second. Okay, she can join now. If you can tell her. Hania, not yet. Okay. Right. Okay, Hania, welcome, Hania. I want, said the Defarge, who had not removed his gaze, his look from the shoemaker, to let in the room a little more light here. You can bear a little more, because the man was living in dark for a long time, as we said. He can't, you know, when you sleep in a dark room and then you have light suddenly, you can't bear it for some time. The shoemaker stopped his work, looked with a vacant air of listening at the floor on the side of him, then similarly at the floor on the other side of him, then upward at the speaker. What did you say? You can bear a little more light? Defarge repeated his question. I must bear it if you let it in. Maybe this light here is real light or symbolizes his daughter, Lucy, laying the palest or the palest shadow of a stress upon the second word. The opened half door was opened a little further and secured at that angle for the time. A broad ray of light fell into the garret and showed the workman with an unfinished shoe upon his lap, posing in his labor. His few common tools and various scraps of leather were at his feet and on his bench. Okay, this is uh, uh, let's move on to this part. He had put up a hand between his eyes and the light, because the light was strong for his eyes, and uh, the very bones of it seemed transparent. So he sat with a steadfastly vacant gaze, posing in his work. He never looked at the figure before him. The figure may be his daughter's figure, without first looking down on this side of himself, then on that, as if he had lost the habit of associating place with sound. He never spoke without first wandering in this manner and forgetting to speak. Are you going to finish that pair of shoes today? Monsieur Defarge asked him. Imagine, guys, he's talking to him as if you're talking to a baby or a 3-year-old child. Okay. Are you going to finish that pair of shoes today? Motioning to Mr. Lorry to come forward. What did you say? Because the man couldn't hear him again. Do you mean to finish that pair of shoes today? This is the fact. I can't say that I mean to. I suppose so. I don't know. The man was confused, and this answer reflects how confused he is. Okay, but the question reminded him of his work, and he bent over it again. He started focusing on the shoe in his hand again. Defarge said to him, "You have a visitor, you see," said Monsieur Defarge. "What did you say for the 10th time? What did you say?" "Here is a visitor." The shoemaker, the doctor, of course, here, looked up as before, but without removing a hand from his work. Come, said Defarge. Here is Monsieur, who knows a well-made shoe when he sees one. Show him that shoe you are working at. Take it, Monsieur. Mr. Lorry took it in his hand. Maybe it wasn't Lucy then, it was one of the Jacks. Tell Monsieur what kind of shoe it is and the maker's name. There was a longer pause than usual before the shoemaker replied, I forget what it was you asked me. He forgot the question. What did you say? I said, couldn't you describe the kind of shoe for Monsieur's information? It is a lady's shoe. So Dr. Manette was making a lady's shoe. It is a young lady's walking shoe. Maybe he was preparing it for his daughter, but he didn't know that she's going to visit him. It is in the present mode. I never saw the mode. I have had a pattern in my hand. He glanced at the shoe with some little passing touch of pride. He was proud of the shoe in his hand. He was proud, sorry. And the maker's name, Defarge asked him about, what's your name? In other words, after a long description, he said, did you ask me for my name here? Assuredly, I did. 105 North Tower. This is how Dr. Manette answered the question asking about his name. So he didn't say his name. He said the number of the cell in which he was imprisoned. Is that all? Is that all? 105 North Tower. This is with a weary sound that was not a sigh nor a groan. He bent to work again until the silence was again broken. You are not a shoemaker by trade, said Mr. Looking. He wants to check whether he remembers or still remembers that he is a doctor. I am not a shoemaker by trade. No, I was not a shoemaker by trade. I learned it here. He was still thinking that he is in prison. I taught myself. I asked leave to, and so on. So, I asked leave to teach myself, and I got it with much difficulty after a long while, and I have made shoes ever since. So he taught himself in prison how to make shoes. Here, Monsieur Manette, do you remember nothing of me? This is Mr. Lorry. So Lucy and Mr. Lorry are here now. Monsieur Manette, do you remember nothing of me? The shoe dropped to the ground, and he sat looking fixedly at the questioner. Monsieur Manette, Mr. Lorry laid his hand upon Defarge's arm. Do you remember nothing of this man? Look at him. Look at me. Mr. Lorry was asking him, do you remember Monsieur Defarge, your old servant? Do you remember me? I'm your banker. I'm your trustee. Do you remember me? Is there no older banker? No old business? Do you remember your old banker, your old business? No old servant, your old servant, Monsieur Defarge? No old time, no old life rising in your mind, Monsieur Manette? Do you remember all this? Monsieur Manette, have you recognized him, Monsieur? Asked Defarge in a whisper. Yes, for a moment. At first, I thought it quite hopeless, but I have unquestionably seen for a single moment the fact that I once knew so well. Let us draw further back. Okay. She had moved from the wall, this is Lucy of the garret, very near to the bench. When the girl neared her father or approached her father more, he tried to feel her hair, and her hair looked or was the same or had the same feeling as her mother's. The day he was arrested and put in prison, he found on his clothes two hairs only of his wife's hairs. He put them or kept them in a cloth, I think, a piece of cloth, and tied it around his neck. He stared at her with a fearful look, and after a while, his lips began to form some words. Though no sound proceeded, the guy is opening the mic. Please, can you silence yourself?